evening and welcome to the Charlton Board of Selectmen October 9th regular meeting. Would everybody please stand for the pledge? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, on this evening's warrant, we have reading of the agenda, minutes of the regular meeting from September 25th that need to be approved, community relations announcements and open forum. Under appointments and resignations, we have the resignation from the Solar Moratorium Committee. Under scheduled appointments at 6:45 p.m., we have the Charlton Democratic Committee with a little information on ranked choice voting. At 7 p.m., we have Jordan Evans coming in on gender identity law. At 7:15 p.m., we have request to remove property from Chapter 61A Mitchell, and that was continued from September 11th. At 7:20 p.m., we have request to remove property from Chapter 61A JMF and B Realty LLC, and that was continued from September 11th, 2018. At 7:30 p.m., we have Life Essence Registered Marijuana Cultivation and Processing Facility for 130 Sturbridge Road. Under new business, we have a site plan application for P-Core Plumbing and Heating on Worcester Road. The holiday schedule for the Board of Selectmen meeting and all boards, committee, commissions meeting. We have an award for a bid to award for the Town Hall HVAC Controls Project. Under old business, Board of Selectmen goals and objectives, and special town meeting continued. We have to finalize the motions for the warrant. We'll then proceed to committee reports. Board of Selectmen policy review. Selectmen SPWAC has 4 policies. Policy for adoption and amendment of policies, transparency in the siting of marijuana facilities in Charlton, citizen relations / petitions policy, and minutes. Then we have the student select persons report. We'd like to welcome back Anya. She did a fine job last year, and she has decided to come back again this year. Thank you very much. We have the town administrator's report. Other business unknown at time of posting. We have a highway superintendent has a disclosure form. Our next meeting announcement will be for a special town meeting Monday, October 15th, 2018, 7 p.m. at the Charlton Middle School. And our next regular selectmen's meeting will be October 23rd at 6:30 p.m. in the selectmen's meeting room. Okay. Do we have a motion on the minutes of the regular meeting from September 25th?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Safarovich.
I move that we accept the September 25th regular meeting minutes.
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Announcements for this evening. Last day to register to vote for the November 6, 2018 state election is Wednesday, October 17th, 2018, from 7:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. Early voting is October 22nd, 2018 through November 2nd, 2018. Check the website for a flyer with exact times and locations. Special town meeting, Monday, October 15th, 2018, 7 p.m. at the Charlton Middle School. Charlton Food Clinic, Tuesday, October 16th, 2018, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. in the Charlton Senior Center. Please make sure to have all of your insurance cards with you. No insurance, no problem. No one will be refused a flu shot. Trunk or treat, Sunday, October 21st, 2018, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. at the Charlton Arts and Activities Center, 4 Dresser Hill Road, and it's free admission. Trunks needed to help make this a success for the children. Decorate your trunk for the children to pick up treats. Contact Mrs. Petrak at 508-248-9548 with questions. Trick-or-treating in Charlton will be held on Wednesday, October 31st, 2018, from 5:30 PM to 7:30 PM. Stay with adults, use a flashlight, and don't eat any candy until your parents check it. One of the things I'd like to make an announcement about is it's Breast Cancer Awareness Month. The Charlton Fire Department has T-shirts for sale in their support of this endeavor. I believe they're $20 a piece, and if you look on their website or if you contact our office, we will get you in touch on how to purchase one. I did purchase one, but mine didn't come in early enough, so I'm wearing this tonight. So, with that, is there anybody here for open forum? Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. Lucas Stevens, 87 Oxford Road, also Charlton Rec Commission. I'm here on behalf of them tonight. Just a quick announcement. After a couple of long years and a lot of red tape and deliberations, we finally have our skate park ready to go. Hopefully, the grand opening is Sunday, the 14th, I believe. This at noon, I believe. I'll have to double check the exact details. Just like to thank Diane Doherty, John Perkins, their current and past rec commissioners for their guidance as well, Linda Bellows, Kurt Meskis as well, sitting back there for his guidance. Really a long project. Funding took a long time, but it's finally here and come to fruition, so we're ready to go. And I'd like to thank everyone for their support tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Good job by the rec committee. Anybody else for open forum? Seeing no one, does the board have any announcements? Or?
I do,
Yes,
through the
Anna.
chair. Couple things. This Saturday on October 13th, the Shepherd Hill Band has their home show. 10 bands are competing and the show begins at 6 p.m. There is a new Look to Nicotine seminar explaining the dangers and growth of teen vaping and e-cigarettes on October 17th at 6 p.m. in the Shepherd Hill Auditorium. I actually have a flyer if you guys want to see that after. And the following day, October 18th, there's an MEFA college financing seminar, again at 6 p.m. in the Shepherd Hill Auditorium. That's all.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you very
Thank you.
much.
Does anybody else have anything? Seeing none. Appointments and resignations, Ms. Craven.
Yes, sir. Attached, please find an email from Todd Gerard, our conservation agent, asking to have his name withdrawn from the Solar Moratorium Review Committee. He doesn't have the time or the resources to sit on this committee at this time. He would suggest if the board would like representation from conservation, that you should ask for volunteers from the commission. What is the board's wishes?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Safaro.
I move that we accept Mr. Gerard's resignation from the Solar Moratorium Review Committee.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor? Aye.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Safaro.
have we reached out to the Conservation Commission?
Would you like us to send a letter on behalf of either the Solar Committee or the Board of Selectmen asking if they would like to nominate someone or
Yes,
have a
please.
representative?
And if not, would that just go to a member at large?
Yes.
It would really be beneficial to have someone from
Right.
that group on there for their expertise.
Mhm.
So if we could find someone, that'd be fantastic.
Dr.
I
Hartwig?
just found out that we will be meeting a week from tomorrow, so it will come up, and I'm sure they'll ask for volunteers.
Excellent.
Okay.
Okay. Ms. Craven, scheduled appointments.
Yes, sir. The Charlton Democratic Committee has asked to be placed on your agenda to do a presentation about ranked choice voting. We have scheduled them for 6:45.
Okay. Dr. Hartwig?
Thank you. I'm going to keep this as brief as possible because I want to maximize the time available for the presentation, which interests me as well as I hope everyone else. It's a little bit misleading, I think, to say that this comes from the Charlton Town Democratic Committee because it's a totally bipartisan issue. It just happens to have been discussed by our committee, possibly as something we would do in common with the Town Republican Committee. One of the supporters is our friend Jordan Evans, who's on that committee. So it's not particularly a Democratic or Republican issue. Even the library has not ruled out doing a public program on this later on at some point. So with that said, potentially we have a different and possibly better way of voting. And I'd like to present Howard Fain from Mass Voters Choice. We'll take it from here.
Thank you. I'm going to see if I can pop this up just
Yep.
a bit. To what effect? Yeah. There we go. Thank you very much for this opportunity to present. And as was just clarified, this is not on behalf of Democratic Committee per se, as much as in the public interest. And there has been a lot of communication with both town committees. So the presentation I'm going to make about ranked choice voting. My name's Howard Fain. I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts, and representing Voter Choice Massachusetts. So as part of our public education campaign, our presentation first presents the problem and then the solution. And the problem affects all parties, as was just said, and political persuasions equally. It is as arbitrary as it is insidious. The solution we propose is therefore completely neutral in overall effect. Again, clarifying the remarks just made on whose behalf we're here. To highlight the problem, we highlight some real-life examples of it. We have aimed to balance them in terms of the effects on different parties, levels of government, and the type of elections, primaries and general elections. We don't ask you to ignore your own partisan interest in reviewing these examples, if any. We ask you, however, to see each example not as positive or negative for your side or any side, but as part of a larger problem that can be solved to the ultimate advantage of all. So I'm going to proceed and do the presentation. We're going to get into the problem and then the solution. So the problem. We're going to look at something historical memory for many people. The U.S. presidential election in Florida in 2000, just as a classic reminder of what goes on here. We have three candidates competing on the Florida ballot for the presidential election, which of course Electoral College Florida played a critical role and turned into something quite major for our democracy. But we're focusing a little something different than the hanging chads. We're going to look at a candidate with 48.8% versus 48.84%, and Ralph Nader, third-party candidate, at 1.64. When we take a closer look, we see a 537 vote difference, again, drawing back memories for many in this room about what was happening there. But what interests us and why we start with this is the exit poll of Nader voters that was taken in Florida during that election. And when we start looking at what really are second choices they were asked about on the exit poll, we find that 28% would not have voted, which cast a second choice if they had the opportunity. Not unexpected. Some people knew what they were doing and why they were doing it and committed for that direction. But when we start looking, 27% would have voted for Bush, reminding us that individual voters make their own decisions and defy some expectations. But 45% would have voted for Gore. The implications are significant as the second choices, which would not, and if we look at the vote totals, would have changed that election. But here's our point. Nader was called a spoiler. As an individual, as a party, but not as a system, all right, where spoiling elections should be something we don't regard as, you're wrong to run, you're wrong to vote. But you have the right to run, you have the right to vote. And so that's why we start out with this particular example, a classic case in a lot of our memories, as we said, of the concept of a spoiler. Here's another election, U.S. House election in Mass 6th District, 2012. John Tierney, a long-term incumbent Democrat, challenged by a very promising Republican candidate, Richard Tassay, but not just, Dan Fishman, Libertarian Party candidate. 48%, 47%, 6%, 5%, sorry. And so what are the implications of this? No surprise. If we look at it, it wouldn't break down automatically. We see even in that exit poll in Florida, it's never 100%. but patterns reveal themselves. And we see that 52% voted against the incumbent Democrat, and reasonably could say costing the Republican Party the chance to win this seat in 2012 against possibly a somewhat wounded Democratic incumbent. That was just, things were happening. So what's the implication? Libertarians play spoiler in two big races in the area newspapers up there. Again, it's not a system that has a problem, but it's someone choosing to run, choosing to put themselves forward, having voters free to choose that person, and they're the spoilers, okay? And that's why this paper is bemoaning the fact that the chance for the Republicans to take this seat was lost. So we've seen one Democratic example and one Republican. Just to take a look at a city, I know it's far away from Charlton in a different situation, but Boston mayor preliminary, first time an open seat in quite a while, and communities of color are advancing, being put forward, and this is their time, is the common wisdom in our capital city. But what happens, and so you think, well, at least in a preliminary election, you're narrowing down to two, which is, in the cities in Massachusetts use preliminary elections, they narrow down to two or twice the number of seats to be elected, and at least you're going to have a majority winner. And that's fair. And we'll contrast that in our solution. But this large field doesn't break that way. We start to see people casting their ballots with many candidates of color in a community of interest, a pretty clear community of interest, and we get the top two finishers as, nothing against white Irish guys, but two white Irish guys. One of the premier candidates, Charlotte Goler-Ritchie on the lower left, gets 14%, but when you start looking at the other candidates for which there was a clear community of overlapping support, you start to see the issues of vote splitting, and candidates of color might have split the vote there by preventing any from making the top two. So even the concept of this preliminary is looking like a flawed part of the system. And what do you see? You get, please drop out, you shouldn't be running, coalesce, you strategically saying, who has the best chance to win, how can we avoid split votes? All of these things against the democratic principle. More, as it says at the bottom, more candidates should mean political progress. Instead, it can undermine it if you're overlapping support and you're splitting votes and being called spoilers and urged to drop out. So we see this over and over in elections. We've looked at city, we've looked at federal elections, we saw Congress. But third congressional Democratic primary, 2018, applying to primaries. It's not our neck of the woods, but North Shore, Merrimack Valley, and it narrowed down to 10 candidates on the ballot from 12 or 13 as it was looking. We were predicting winners in the 20% range. This is, our predictions were pretty on. 21.7% for the winner, 21.6%, 127 votes separating. This is not a way to find out who the majority in the Democratic primary wanted, or people saying, if I vote for that person who is not a front runner, will I harm the chance of the one I like least? And all this strategizing, again, a structural problem. Spoilers, complexity, all to find out, and at 21.7 after recount, 21.7% victory over 21.6, 127 votes. All part of our problem. Too many candidates in the sense that you get only one, and you have to strategize what the effect of that vote is. So, 40,000 voters. Here's just a real election from a small town in Massachusetts from May 2018. The reason I'm keeping it like this is just to remind you, even for local seats, you three-way candidates for a single seat, 44.3%, 36.7%, and 19.0%. What do? We can say, well, 55.7% didn't vote for the winner. We don't know if the majority winner was that front runner. We can say maybe that person, if second choices were considered, 44.3, would emerge as the majority, but we're not sure. We don't know if this represents a polarized position and the 55.7 represents one position versus another. We don't know. We still, when we cast just one vote in this multi-candidate races, we don't know. So 41% of the time, and look at all these, federal and state races, Massachusetts, when there's 3 or more candidates, we get a plurality-only winner, no majority. So that's part of the problem. The plurality system is the true spoiler. These are some of its problems. And now, not guaranteeing majority winner, not eliminating the spoiler effect, discouraging candidates from running, limits our choice in the voting booth, functionally and structurally. So, the solution. Ranked choice voting. Instead of picking just one candidate, ranked choice voting lets you rank multiple candidates in the order you prefer them. Simple as 1, 2, 3. Here's a ballot. The big news we'll be talking about is the state of Maine, which we're hoping to follow, adopted ranked choice voting in popular initiatives, in fact had it defended and even more so in the recent ballot, and has adopted statewide ranked choice voting for primaries and general elections. Let's take a look at, and that's how you rank the ballot. Who's my first choice, who's my second, who's my third? You get one vote, but you get several chances to make it work based on second, third choices if your candidate doesn't make it. We'll explain how that works. So to win under ranked choice voting, a candidate must get a majority of the votes, greater than 50%, either in the first round or what's called the instant runoff, in which you tabulate the ranked choices based on those ballots you just saw. In the Maine Republican gubernatorial primary, held on June of 2018, June 12th, Sean Moody won out of 4 candidates with 56.6%. Election over, done, got what we wanted. Without vote splitting concerns, without spoiler concerns, 4 people able to run, be heard, voters be able to vote for who they wanted. Got the majority, we tagged them with a winner. Election's over. Democratic primary, 7 candidates. You can look at those totals. The highest vote getter of first choice is 33.3%, followed by 28.3%, and then so on down to much lower totals. Everyone free to run, voters free to vote. What happens, and I'm going to just demonstrate a ranked choice situation, is because there's no majority winner, you go to second choices and eliminated. Instead of, normally you'll hear the phrase, the lowest candidate is eliminated first, and you look at second choices. This system uses, if you're mathematically impossible to move up, you're called batch elimination, not to get too technical, but the 3 bottom ones who had no chance whatsoever, even if they got every transfer of second choices below them, they're eliminated at once. So you see them on the right, they're eliminated, and their votes transferred. You revise the totals. Janet Mills is still in the lead, 35.5, but no majority. We don't know whether then the other candidates are going to have split votes and be able to coalesce them in support. Another round, you drop that person, still no majority winner. One more round, distribute the next highest choice from the ballot of the third person, the third remaining person, and we have a 54.1 to 45.9% winner. Okay, those 2 people will face themselves, Republican and Democrat, in the general election. But we see this applied where the majority winner did emerge, and we've seen it applied where on the first choice, and we saw where the lower ranked ballots were considered. Just to see it graphically, just a little different than the numbers, you see eliminations, and you see the winner emerge. That's ranked choice voting. One of the things, campaign civility has been well documented, sometimes even joint campaigning where, vote for me 1 or that person 2, in San Francisco mayor, in Maine governor primary. By the way, they didn't make it, those 2 at the lower right, but they went as a pair. Why didn't they make it? They didn't have enough support. Everyone could vote for them if they wanted and transfer to them if they wanted. They didn't have enough support. There's no magic in this. It's what the voters want, and the ranked choice makes them land on the right spot. So, Minneapolis also, as well as that. Let me just explain how, show you in the little graphic, campaigning under plurality. Walk up, one candidate walks up and sees the opposing sign. What are they going to do? Leave, all right? No good. That's not where they want to be. But now, consider under ranked choice voting. They come back, they see that sign. What's their incentive to go talk to the people? May I please have your second choice vote if it doesn't work out for your first place candidate? And that's exactly, it's documented, it's proven. This is the part of the greater civility. You're more interwoven, interlocked. You're giving voters several choices to think through their priorities and make them stick. It's a real practical solution. It eliminates the spoilers and vote splitting, encourages more people to run, curbs negative campaigning, gives voters more voice and more choice, will transform politics in Massachusetts. And the ranked choice voting process enacted on Maine, then ballots cast, first statewide, will be next. We are pursuing Voter Choice Massachusetts. We are looking for legislation. We are considering ballot initiatives. We are doing whatever's necessary to put this is something, a major reform that must come to Massachusetts, and we will be next. The growth in the last 20 years has been substantial. There's more coming online very shortly, and if we in Massachusetts do it, we will be substantially increasing the amount of ranked choice voting. It's used around the world in many countries, and we have various organizations and colleges, Political Science Association, and most fun of all, maybe, Best Picture at the Academy Awards, precisely to avoid vote splitting and find the true majority preference. Endorsed by the Boston Globe, I see 20 seconds left. And after the debacle in the 10-candidate CD3 up in the North Shore and Merrimack Valley, ranked choice voting to the rescue is the Globe editorializing. It's a little quicker than I would normally do, but that's our presentation, and I know there's no time for questions, but we urge you to personally support it, consider at some points, as the committees will, the Democratic Town and the Republican Town committees, signing on for this nonpartisan reform to advance the right to run, the right to vote, and fair elections. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Appreciate it.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Joe.
can we have a copy of that presentation available for the public?
Sure. We'll ask.
I'll make that.
Thank you.
Who should I send that to?
Can send it to me.
Yes, okay. Great.
Thank you, Mr. Fain.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Craver?
Okay. Oops, sorry.
Got it?
Well. I've done all right.
Want to sleep?
It did. Okay, thank you. Jordan Evans has asked to be placed on the agenda to discuss the gender identity law that was approved by the House of Representatives and the Senate on July 7, 2016. This law will appear as question 3 on the upcoming November general election ballot and will determine the outcome of the 2016 state law pertaining to public accommodations as they relate to gender identity. A yes vote would keep in place the current law, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of gender identity in places of public accommodation. A no vote would repeal this provision of the public accommodation law. We have scheduled her for 7 o'clock.
Hey, Jordan, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
No, thank you. Thank you for bringing up an important subject.
Well, excuse me. So I'm grateful for this opportunity because, and I'm going to speak about this rather candidly, and I find it very important to the town of Charlton. Mainly because the town of Charlton has an extremely influential and growing queer community, in particularly a trans community. And I find that whatever happens this November will have direct ramifications on this community within our town. For those who don't know me, I know most of you know me, as do a number of people behind us, but for those who may be watching and listening, my name is Jordan Evans. I am a resident of Charlton. I have lived here almost all of my life, and I love this community. I am involved with our municipal government. I'm involved with the library. I'm our town constable. I am on an education foundation which seeks to enrich our educators in the district. I am doing my best to piecemeal together our cultural council so we can continue to fund the amazing programs and projects that are in our town. And I am aware of many hats. And in doing all this, I have come to meet and speak with and learn about so many amazing trans people in our town whose well-beings and whose freedoms hinge on the balance. During all of my travels, I have spoken at our high school and in our school systems multiple times. There are so many students at Shepherd Hill, for example, who would be directly impacted by the results of this question. These are people who live in our town, these are people who are growing up in our town, and these are people who, upon graduating, will most likely stay in our town for a little while longer before they decide if they want to go out to the world somewhere else or stay in a town like Charlton. These are students who are scared. They don't know what's going to happen. Their public accommodation rights could be potentially up for grabs. This is a civil rights issue which is vital to both their well-beings and the well-beings of everyone who calls them their children, their family, their friends. This impacts more than just them. This impacts everyone who's ever loved or known a trans person. Likewise, there are a number of transgender adults in our community. I have gotten to know them through the same. I have seen them speak at our town meetings. I have met them while out in the streets, out in our businesses. They are patrons of everything in this town. And depending on the results of this question, their ability to enter these facilities unhindered and without the fear or threat of discrimination could potentially be up for grabs. For those who aren't too familiar with question 3, this question seeks to overturn the gender identity law, which was signed into effect by Governor Baker back in the summer of 2016. This law protects a trans person's abilities to enter any place of public accommodations, which is defined as a place that is open to the public and that accepts and engages in solicitation and patronage. So this means your stores, your local businesses, your restaurants, your senior centers and homes for the seniors, your libraries, your hospitals, your dentist's office, your therapist's office, everything that we as a whole tend to take for granted that we would never have to enter in fear for discrimination. This is not true for trans people. Now, I don't believe there's a single person in this room who would ever discriminate against anyone for any reason. I have lived in this town almost my whole life. I love everyone in this town, and I trust everyone in this town to always act in their best, the best interests of the people around them. But that doesn't mean that it can't happen. It doesn't mean that if this law is overturned, that you won't see this happen on a smaller level. Because these types of things are not always grand gestures that are reported by the press, that are projected into a spotlight. They happen frequently, and they happen often. And even with the law in place, they still happen. But at least with the law in place, trans people like myself and the many others who call our community home have a legal recourse, a type of defense, so that while it may still happen, it will happen less, we like to hope. So I appear before you today because I feel as if Charlton is in a prime position to join a coalition of other communities who want to see the law upheld. Other communities such as the Arlington Select Board, the Melrose Select Board, the Lexington Select Board, the City of Boston, the City of Worcester, the Board of Health of Ashfield, and so many other places. There is a precedent in place for towns to have an interest in seeing this law preserved. And in all of those places, there is a flourishing and thriving trans community that hinges in the balance. I feel that we could be in a real place to do some serious good in ensuring that we retain the freedoms and rights for all that I think all of us think that people should have. No one should ever be afraid of going into a public facility and running the risk of being discriminated against or being turned away simply because of who they are, a facet of themselves that they have no control over. But I know that by presenting you with this resolution that I drafted, and I'm sure you've all seen a copy of it, you'll make a solid and sound choice in deciding where we should fall in this very, very pressing issue. What happens here in Massachusetts in November could potentially flip the script and cause, well, a national conversation. If we can't preserve the rights of a marginalized people in Massachusetts, then that will not bode well for that people. That will cause a conversation that will put the rights of millions of people who are trans, millions of people who are like me, into a free fall. Now, we happen to have a unique claim to fame in this general area that we call home. The towns of Charlton and Southbridge together make up the most openly trans officials in elected government than anywhere else in the country. If there's anywhere in the United States that should be a place free of discrimination and free of any kind of hate and bigotry, then why not here? Why not our community? We could really do something good here, and I'm hoping that you can see it the way I do. And if not, I want to do what I can to answer any questions or quell any concerns that you might have. And I appreciate you for giving me the moment to express to you my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jordan.
Does the board have any questions or comments?
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
Hi, Jordan.
I'll stay.
Thank you. I just want to go on the record as saying I'm appalled that this is coming to a vote again on the statewide level. The organization that put it forth, I'm hoping has everyone's best interests at heart, but I don't see that. I see this as coming to a vote again as being horribly, horribly discriminatory. I don't think that's who we are as a town, as a state, as a nation. And I hope you know that, because I'm saying it right now. And I support you in your endeavors. And I would hope that question 3 gets struck down. But no matter what happens, your rights will always be protected in this town.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead, Mr. Salvo.
I do have the pleasure of knowing, having many transgender friends, and it's amazing, they're just people. And
What a concept.
yeah, just people, it's amazing. And one thing, Charlton doesn't discriminate. And just to clarify, a vote yes on question 3 is supportive of the law that's in place. So law 3 would, question 3 would need to be passed with a yes.
Okay.
Personally, I don't see or would like to have a board support or not support questions on a state ballot, but whatever happens, I'm committed to making sure Charlton does not discriminate and pass whatever local resolution or policy to protect those rights.
Karen?
And through the chair, I just want to say thank you to Jordan. I've had the pleasure of working with you over the years, and thank you for continuously giving back to the community. I think you're here today, though, to ask us to back the resolution that you submitted, take a stand, and other boards have done it, and I'm suggesting that we do it, not because other cities and towns have done it, but because it's the right thing to do. And it's nice that we're all individually commenting on it, but I'd like to make a motion that we accept the resolution as presented by Jordan.
Okay. We have a motion, do we have a second?
Absolutely.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, any discussion?
Now, again, I don't feel comfortable voting on whether or not to support. If you look in the resolution, that it calls out questions on the Massachusetts ballot. I think it opens up a door for potential issues down the road. If anything, if a selectman policy or town policy were to come before me, I would absolutely vote for it. I just don't feel as it's appropriate to vote to take an official stance on questions.
Then, through the chair, I would defer to Jordan. Did the language you provided us, did you get that from another town? I know you usually do your research, so.
That was something that I pulled bits and pieces from other towns that have signed on to supporting the coalition, but I more or less penned that out from those pieces into what you see before you.
So again, through the chair, and I'd be willing to pull back the main motion. Is there something that would be more palatable to the board?
Through the chair. In your resolution here, you have a section where it specifically calls out yes on 3 coalition.
Right.
It says, "Be it resolved, we, the members of the Board of Selectmen, do hereby express our commitment to defend transgender equality in Charlton, and will hereby pledge to sign on to the Freedom for All Massachusetts Yes on 3 coalition to say clearly discrimination has no place in Massachusetts and no place in Charlton." Would you be amenable, since you wrote this, I want to ask you, to change that language slightly to say, "Be it resolved, we, the members of the Board of Selectmen, do hereby express our commitment to defend transgender equality in Charlton, and will hereby pledge to state that discrimination has no place in Massachusetts and no place in Charlton," so that we remove the yes on 3 coalition section?
Ideally, I would like to see us formally join the coalition, but I do acknowledge and understand your concerns, Mr. Safarovich. I do think that will drive home the strongest message, as this coalition is composed of government figures, other town managers, individual selectmen, representatives, faith leaders, businesses, nonprofits, and other town governments. I do think there is a sense of, I guess you could say, nonpartisanship and a bit of detachment from your standard type of ballot question pertaining to this. So,
If I may ask, because it says, "Sign on to the Freedom for All Massachusetts Yes on 3 coalition." Can you explain to me a little bit about the coalition?
of course.
Thank you.
So the coalition is, as I mentioned, it is a collective of various organizations, businesses, nonprofits, other town and municipal boards, town figures, unions, police organizations, and any other type of entity that sees upholding the current law as something that really should not be politicized, but as something that should be ingrained within our society. So there is the concern that we are turning what should be a civil rights, a topic of civil rights,
Yes.
into a political topic, in part because of there being a question. And by having all of these organizations tack on, it kind of reaffirms the legitimacy of this as a civil rights issue and not as a political issue. That's how I've interpreted it and how I've always seen it. I will put forward that I am a member of the coalition myself, but I do understand your apprehensions. I would ideally like to see the board join the coalition, but I will ultimately defer to you all, and honestly, a firm stand against any kind of discrimination, particularly against trans people and on the basis of gender identity, is ultimately what we want to see the most.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Safarovich.
I have an alternate motion proposal.
I'm willing to withdraw.
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay, go
So I would say that the resolution I would approve would be, include the first, and whereas the Massachusetts House of Representatives and Senate approves the addition of gender identity to the Massachusetts Public Accommodation Law,
on the date, whereas Governor Baker signed it into legislation, whereas it's been in effect since October 1st. I would then go to be it resolved that we, the members of the Board of Selectmen, do hereby express our commitment to defend transgender equality in Charlton, and that discrimination has no place in Massachusetts and no place in Charlton.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Does that make sense?
But we're stopping short at signing on to the,
Yes, so basically, if you look at the first three boxes, I include that in my motion, and then the be it resolved box, just from that one, just would be it resolved, we, the members of the Board of Selectmen, do hereby express our commitment to defend transgender equality in Charlton, and that discrimination has no place in Massachusetts and no place in Charlton, and then the be it further resolved at the bottom. Does that make sense?
I'm going to second it, just so we can
So
continue
we
the
have a motion
discussion.
and a second.
Okay.
Um,
Here's I have a question. May I?
Yeah.
Jordan, in the event that this question is passed,
Not passed.
or not passed,
Very confusing.
it is very confusing. In the event that the vote goes the way you want, whichever way that is, because I have no idea right now, what will happen to the coalition? Will it be dissolved? Because the name of the coalition, the very purpose of it, may cease.
The spirit of the coalition will never dissolve. The coalition exists to ensure that the law continues as it is well past November. We want the law to be preserved. But in the unfortunate event that the law is overturned, everyone who has signed on to the coalition, everyone who has been involved with trying to keep the law as it currently reads, will continue to keep fighting for full equality under the law in our Commonwealth. So I guess you could say the coalition, the name of the coalition is for the purpose of seeing that this law survives past November. But if the worst outcome happens, we're still going to be resolved to continue to fight and continue to push and continue to make sure that everyone here knows that they have a place in the society and that we will not stand for discrimination.
So, I just want to say a couple of things. I think, no matter what the board does, it's in support of this, and I'm in support of, you know, either we do what you had given us, the resolution, or whether we do what Mr. Safarovich came up and Ms. Noble has seconded, and I'm sure Ms. Spiewak would third on that. I just want to point out that the governor is incensed about this. He has come out, which they usually don't do this on questions. He himself has come out and said, yes on 3, that Massachusetts has no room for this to be taking place in the state, and that we treat everybody, every citizen equally. And I think that's the way the board feels. You know, we're in semantics on words right now, but I believe that yes on 3 is what the board is supporting, and you know, through Mr. Safarovich's motion, we will get that point across.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, and just to clarify, I see where Ms. Evans comes from about individually being politicized and as a board not being politicized. I personally see it as the opposite way around of engaging in a ballot question is politicizing the entire board, where I feel more comfortable. Like, I would sign on as an individual, as part of the coalition, but I just don't feel comfortable as a board getting involved in politics like that, especially outside of Charlton.
Respect that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
through the chair, I want to expand on what you just mentioned, Joe. But I believe it is legal for us to do so. And if it is, I understand you may not be comfortable, but I'd like to make it clear that it is legal for us to take that stand. And I still, you know what I'm saying, but I would like to support a yes on 3 and actually have that language in there, because that's the part you took out, right? That's kind of the part with the teeth. That's all.
Through the chair.
Go ahead.
I just want to go on the record as saying, I have no apprehension at all about signing on to Freedom for All Massachusetts, Yes on 3 coalition. No apprehension, no hesitation, no question in my mind.
Excellent.
Then would we amend the motion to include that? Because that's not in Joe's right now.
I know.
Just throwing it out there.
I would like to amend the motion
Okay.
to include that language. Be it resolved, we, the members of the Board of Selectmen, do hereby express our commitment to defend transgender equality in Charlton, and will hereby pledge to sign on to Freedom for All Massachusetts, Yes on 3 coalition, to say clearly, discrimination has no place in Massachusetts and no place in Charlton.
Okay. We have an amendment to the original motion that's been seconded. Do we have a second for the amendment?
I will second that.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the amendment?
So, for clarity's sake, I would recommend you just restoring, if you wanted to go that way, restoring the original recommended resolution, because you're excluding 2 other sections I did not include in my motion.
Okay.
And I'm not happy. I would not support the amendment, and unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to support a vote on that, but I would still be happy to personally sign up and join the coalition as an individual.
All right. So, what is the board's wishes? Do you wish to go back to the original resolution? Do you wish to remove the amendment?
Well, since you made the main motion, would you withdraw so we could go back to the regular, the first one, or did you want to keep it? Because I'd withdraw the second on the amendment if,
I'll withdraw.
I'll withdraw.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we have no motions on the floor right now.
We do.
We do.
We have my motion,
Okay, so we have to vote on Joe's motion.
Okay.
unless you want to amend it.
Would like
You don't want to
amend it?
withdraw it?
I'd like to make a motion to amend Joe's motion to include all the original language as written.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to include all the original language um, from the resolution that's in front of us.
Yep.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
No. Oh, that's ready.
That's all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay. Ayes have it.
There's still a motion on the floor,
Your motion.
the amendment motion, correct.
Okay. So we have the amended motion on the floor.
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye,
Aye?
the amended motion.
Aye.
Abstain?
Okay.
Did you vote?
You did.
Aye.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
We,
It passes.
see.
All right.
Thank you
Okay.
so much, guys. This means so much to so many people.
Well, thank you.
Thank
You're
you,
the one,
Jordan.
Bring it
yeah.
forward,
I'm gonna cry.
Keep up the good work.
Okay.
I can tissue.
Ms. Craven?
Yes, sir. Did it again. Back on. At the board's September 11th meeting, you opened the public hearing for the above subject and voted to postpone the hearing and continue until October 9th to allow the Board of Assessors time to review the recommendation. At that time, the Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and Water Sewer Commission had no objection to the town of Charlton choosing not to exercise their right of first refusal for this request. The Board of Assessors have no objection at this time to the town of Charlton choosing not to exercise your right of first refusal for this request. And the title of this is to remove property from Chapter 61A, Mitchell property.
Okay. So, do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to remove the aforementioned property from Chapter 61A.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Ms. Craven?
Attached is a request from Attorney George Kurtzy on behalf of 0 Point Energy Solutions and Protec Energy Solutions to remove property from Chapter 61A upon land owned by Mark and Tammy Mitchell, located on Brookfield Road for solar. The parcel is identified as map 16, block A, lot 2, and the converted land consists of 21.1377 acres. The Planning Board, Board of Assessors, Conservation Commission, and Water Sewer Commission have all reviewed the request and have no objection to the town of Charlton choosing not to exercise their right of first refusal for this request. The chairman should open the public hearing by reading the attached public hearing notice. Be on page 39.
We're reopening the public hearing.
I believe this is the first one. The other one was reopened.
Because I have it here on page 39, I have.
Okay, so it is reopened. Yes.
Right, so we're just reopening the
Continuing.
public hearing. Okay? All right. Does the board have any comments on it?
Nope.
No? Any comments on removing from the public, from chapter 61, for JFM&B Realty, map 16, block A, lot 2, on Brookfield Road, which consists of 21.1377 acres. Seeing none. Motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second? We have a motion to not exercise our option.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Craven.
I've been contacted by Walter Sullivan Jr., attorney for Life Essence, asking to be placed on the board's agenda to give a presentation about Life Essence and to request a letter of support or non-opposition from the board. Life Essence has 3 applications pending before the Massachusetts Department of Public Health's medical use of marijuana program. They are seeking to open medical marijuana dispensaries in other areas of the Commonwealth, but are looking to only locate its cultivation and processing facility at Charlton at 130 Sturbridge Road. We have scheduled them for 7:30 p.m.
How are you?
Thank you.
Okay.
And I also have one. That's okay. We'll make sure he gets one.
Do they have a copy of the handout in front of them? That should probably be good.
Looks like it's right next to Troy House.
I did not draft this last part, I just for information.
Okay. Who's leading this?
Thank you. I want to thank the planning board for bringing this matter before you. I'm Richard Tannenbaum. I'm the CEO and Managing Director of Life Essence. And I'm here to ask for a letter of non-opposition for a cultivation and manufacturing facility located at 130 Sturbridge Road here in Charlton. If you all have packets in front of you with the presentation, I'd like to be able to explain a little bit about our company and who we are and our proposed plan for the cultivation site
and manufacturing facility here in Charlton.
Okay, could I just ask you one favor? Could you please introduce your team that's here with you, just so we can put names with faces also, please?
I'm Ben Atkins. I'm one of the board members of TrueLeave, one of the largest cannabis companies in the country, publicly traded. And with me is our general counsel.
Ginny Hines.
Arthur Doubleday, work on social equity.
Okay.
My name is Brian Anderson. I'm principal of Anderson Porter Design. We're architects in the cannabis space since 2014. We practice in 9 states and internationally, building cultivation, extraction, and infused kitchen facilities.
Okay.
My name is Rick Nagel. I'm a security consultant.
Okay.
Jim Eisenberg. I work in the government relations wing of Freddie Flaherty, which is Walter Sullivan's
Could you say my name again?
organization. Jim Eisenberg.
Once again, thank you for having us. And as was mentioned, we are Life Essence. And if you turn in your packet to page 2, it explains a little bit about who we are as a company and what we hope to achieve. We're a medical cannabis company. We're a Massachusetts nonprofit. We're currently, as was mentioned earlier, in the siting profile stage, looking for an area to locate our cultivation and manufacturing facility in order to operate both a registered marijuana dispensary within the Commonwealth. Our mission is really to educate, cultivate, manufacture, producing really the highest quality products, and to qualifying patients who have received medical certification, of course, who are over 21 years of age and who have a qualifying condition to do so. We are really committed to being an active member of the community and really giving back to the community through charitable actions. If you turn to the next slide, we also have some people who aren't here today, and I'd like to introduce them as well. Dr. Howard Heidenberg, a urologist who is really interested in the medical effect and ability for cannabis to cure and help with a litany of symptoms and problems that he sees in his clinical practice, as well as attorney Jeff Greenberg, a New Englander and a healthcare attorney who specializes and has in cannabis law, as well as our Director of Strategy, Jonathan Mullane, who is responsible for our business plan and financials, and 2 of the other people who have already introduced themselves, but I'll introduce them again, is retired Lieutenant Rick Nagel, who is our Director of Security, as well as Arthur Doubleday, who's leading up our workforce development and ensures that Life Essence provides opportunities to local residents and the training they need to be able to be involved for those opportunities. So if you turn to the slide about the proposed facility, you'll see, as we mentioned before, it's 130 Sturbridge Road, Charlton, Mass. It's a 45-acre site. It is industrial zoned for cultivation and manufacturing. We are only looking to do cultivation and manufacturing. We project, based on our financials, that essentially this will bring in about $150 million in revenue per year with a compound annual growth rate of around 5%. We're partnering with some of the industry's top leading greenhouse manufacturing companies, as you can see in the right there, Gacon, as well as others. And we hope to have a state-of-the-art facility operational in the quickest timeline that is possible with a project like this. I want to turn to the next slide and talking about working with Charlton, what we really plan to do. One of the things that we're really excited about being in Charlton is to be able to bring a lot of jobs. We have the ability to increase the amount of jobs within the community by hiring local workforce and training them to be able to do the jobs that are within a cultivation and manufacturing facility. That takes a commitment to education from the ground up, and that's something that Life Essence is really committed to do. I also want to address our host community agreement, which we want to talk and discuss with the town in order to find a host community agreement that really makes sense for the town and for Life Essence as well too.
We really hope that we can provide access to patients and people who have serious medical conditions. It's really important and really sort of where our basis and sort of our history comes from, is this ability to not only educate about the ability for the products to treat certain medical conditions, but as well as a new sort of process for treating those medications, to be able to understand and have the patients understand exactly what they need to be able to achieve their desired result. We are really also concerned about being responsible members of the community, and really only having experienced professionals with really comprehensive background checks. It's something that Rick Nagel will talk to you a little bit about further in the presentation. As well, we think that we can really encourage economic development in the town of Charlton, and encourage new follow-on businesses to come into Charlton because of Life Essence's manufacturing cultivation facility in the town here. If you look at the next slide, it's a graph, and it shows sort of the state tax revenues that have, only gone up as time has gone on for individual towns, and so there can be a really great financial impact that a town can see from locating a manufacturing cultivation facility, and of course that's part of a host community agreement, and is sort of included in that. I want to give a second for Attorney Arthur Doubleday to talk about our plan to really train the residents of Charlton to an industry that's new and requires a very specific set of skills, and what we're doing to really partner with the community and make sure those jobs are not only available, but those people who want to fill those roles have the training in order to make those jobs grow for them and really succeed for them. So Arthur, please.
Sure. Should I sit right here? Is this good? Can you hear me?
Speak into the mic.
Okay. I'll just sit right here. So, this is a new industry. Now, there are very few of us that are experts in this. So the way I look at it from a social equity standpoint in providing jobs is it's giving someone who has an interest in this industry the opportunity to become an expert. There's written into the legislation, there is an obligation on entities seeking to operate to work with communities of desperate impact. While the town of Charlton is not one of those communities, the same applies, the same type of thinking applies, which is giving people the opportunity with a livable wage to work in this industry. Given that it's a new industry, and given that very few of us are experts, unless we've been working in some other state, that means that Life Essence has to double down on training. So what we look at is we need to recruit able-bodied people who want to work in this industry. Think about it like Starbucks. You don't work at Starbucks unless you have an interest in coffee, right? So there would be some interest in this industry. And then from there, it's about training. And it's about doubling down on getting people up to speed on what it means to work in a cultivation facility. Then from there, it's about retaining those people, giving them both on-site training and then also the ability to do off-site training. There's a few nonprofits and community colleges that are offering training programs in this industry. So it's not just you come in the door and you are a bud tender. You could come in the door as a bud tender and end up in a managerial role. And then it's about promoting, because the only way you retain your valuable employees is by promoting them. Hopefully they get a bump up in their income. That way we can retain. So, as an entity, we're looking to give people in this community a livable wage, and then from there, an opportunity at a new industry that doesn't really exist right now. It does exist, but it's in its beginning stages. If I could succinct it down, it would be recruit, train, recruit, train, promote, thereby retain. And, you know, if I were a member of this community, I'd want to know, well, how does that translate into numbers? And I think one of the things that you can hold our feet to the fire to is our abilities to reach out to local entities that already have their boots on the ground and know those members of the community that are looking for jobs, and look at how we go and work with those partners and make sure that the people that are looking for jobs in this community are actually employed by Life Festivus.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now I'd like to let retired Lieutenant Detective Rick Nagel talk a little bit about the security of the proposed facility here in Charlton.
Good evening.
Lieutenant, how are you?
Fine, thank you. My name is Rick Nagel. I'm a retired detective lieutenant with the Massachusetts State Police, approximately 31 years with the state police. I get involved with this medical marijuana. Local chiefs asked, Rick, you're the last person I would think that would get involved with this. And I said, it's in Massachusetts, the voters voted it in. I'd rather help secure it than turn my back and cross my fingers and hope it's done correctly. So as a result of that, I got involved with this at the onset. I'm a security consultant for a number of these agencies that are going through. I want to speak in regards to this. A little bit about my background. It's new to Massachusetts, so a lot of people say we don't have experience. I was fortunate, I guess, bittersweet. I have experience before this all came in because if you remember, in Massachusetts, all our narcotics are kept one place, general headquarters in Framingham, and it was compromised. Someone broke in, stole millions and millions of dollars. As a result of that, they selected a few of us to go in and try to figure this out. We knew who the culprit was, but we had to go in and make sure that narcotics were accounted for. We went to every state police barracks in the state, went to every district attorney's office, we went to the attorney general's office, and we had to count. Not only that, we came up with new policy and procedure for inventory, for transportation, and disposal of narcotics. So some of those procedures I'm bringing forward to this agency. In your town, proposed is a cultivation. The good thing from a security point of view, a cultivation is basically a shut-down facility. What does that mean? You're not having people, the public, coming in all the time. It's going to be limited access, which means that everyone who comes in is going to be badged, escorted, and logged in. So if anyone comes in the building, again, it's not the public, if it's contractors, et cetera, there'll be security with them at all times. As for security, working with a company, and what they'll do is we'll have every entrance and exit points will be alarmed and will be monitored. I vetted a lot of these companies, and what I'm looking for is I want cameras that cover every inch of the building. And if a camera goes down, I told them I don't want to wait 3 days for the camera to be back. Also, I've been involved investigating a lot of bank robberies, and I couldn't tell if my next-door neighbor robbed the bank because those pictures are so grainy. They tell me that these pixels are excellent. You'll be able to read whatever's on their jacket or shirt. So they reassured me that. So it's state-of-the-art equipment that they are using. There'll be panic alarms, hold-up alarms, duress alarms in the building. There'll be motion detectors. So these buildings are very secure. I'm not trying to alarm anyone, meaning that you expect problems. All this is mandated by DPH. But I want to go a little bit higher. I want to go a little bit higher with our personnel and with our security. I've been fortunate that I've asked for resumes. This is south of Boston. I'm getting a lot of interest from retired state police, retired FBI, retired local police, fire. I like to hire, if I'm in the process of retired public safety people from the community. Why? Because I don't want people to drive by that building here in Charlton and say, gee, that's the marijuana building. I want them to say, gee, Bob works there, or Jane works there. So I want people from the community. And thank God we have people that are interested, and I hope it's the same out here. And what will be happening from there, and if you don't ask the question, I'll bring it up because I think it's a good question, transportation. What are you going to do about transportation? Because you're a cultivation site. The vehicle will be kept inside. We'll have a minimum of 2 people in that vehicle at all times. They'll have, what DPH recommends is GPS. I want to go above that. I want to have two-way communication radio, in case the GPS, we have an issue with that. Cell phones, in case we have an issue with that. The driver and his assistant or her assistant will be told they only can go from point A to point B, which is the dispensary, without stopping. There's no excuse for stopping unless it's an emergency. They'll be logged out. All the inventory will be weighed. When they arrive at the dispensary, the inventory will be weighed again to make sure nothing is compromised. There will be someone waiting at the dispensary. So it'll be pretty secure with the vehicle, and there will be no markings on the vehicle. There won't be any neon signs on this building here flashing with the green leaf. There won't be anything like that. Be nondescript. But the security, in my opinion, it'll be above, no doubt in my mind, it'll be above what DPH requires. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to let and announce our partnership with TrueLeaf and let Ben, who's here as our consultant, to talk about our partnership and what we're really excited about, the ability to utilize a proven model at Life Essence. So thank you. Take it away.
So, everyone that spoke prior, and a lot of the things going through everybody's mind in this room, the good news is this has been done before, so I can give you the facts and answer the questions and give you the information. A little bit about myself. I've spent my entire life in the healthcare industry of long-term care. I own and operate over 30 nursing homes throughout the country from coast to coast. How did I get into cannabis? I owned one of the largest hospices in Los Angeles, and through the inspiration of my son, learned about cannabis and found a huge influence in California on our hospice patients. So much so, the feds got involved to ask, why are people living 3 months longer on average and using less medications? Instead of using 16 medications at the end of life, they were using 2. So I experienced this firsthand, having raised 4 kids, the youngest of which is 21 now. Cannabis to me was always something that you're trying to avoid your children, like alcohol or any other substance in life through the childhood years. And now I was seeing this as a medication, as something very special. We embraced it and partnered and opened TrueLeaf in Florida. This is where it comes to what your town of Charlton, what it will experience. Quincy, Florida. Nobody here has heard of it. They've heard of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, Miami, Florida. Quincy, Florida is a small town in the Panhandle. Now you may have heard of it because the storm's heading there. But Quincy, Florida did not have many large employees, had huge, largest unemployment in Florida. 2 years later, we're employing 800 people. What are these people doing? What were they doing before? Well, beforehand, they were lucky to work a migrant job or a shift at Popeyes, or if they were really lucky, an assistant manager job at a motel off the interstate. Now, these veterans, people with different disabilities, everyday folks, people who lost their jobs at the age of 50, now these people start off learning about cannabis. Many of them are making anywhere from $60,000 to $100,000 running processing jobs. It's been incredible to watch. The average wage for these folks are, and this is in Florida, is somewhere around $40,000 or $50,000. In addition to these incredible opportunities they've had in the jobs, it's a great cultural experience. We did this all naturally, but when we ran our statistics for the state, approximately 51% of the people had diversity. 65% were single female moms. It was incredible because these were flexible jobs that they could raise their kids and come here in the processing facilities and work, be drivers, all sorts of different positions. What's most amazing about cannabis is if I was sitting here pitching to you a petroleum plant, everybody in the room would be wondering how will this environmentally impact our community. If I was pitching an armory, how will this fall out into the community? The thing about cannabis, it is a plant. We do nothing unnatural to it. We literally are growing plants is what will happen, and they're processed. There's no substances other than natural substances that are mixed with it, if at all. And so what's incredible about this is there's no negative economic impact. The most incredible thing about marijuana is 100% of the plant is used in some form. So the waste is next to nothing. There's no waste issues, there's nothing of that sort. So from a community standpoint, from what Quincy, Florida has experienced, this employer moves in, jobs occur, people love their jobs. We've never had a single security issue in the entire state of Florida. We currently operate approximately 19 dispensaries throughout Florida. Not one single crime has occurred at any of the dispensaries or at any of the 500,000 square feet of growth space that it's climbed to. And from a patient standpoint, our average patient age is 50. That shocks people. Kids, 19-year-olds, are not our customers. They're not the people that are seeking to purchase the products. The people purchasing the products are moms, dads, grandparents, people. A great story I always tell is a gentleman who served in Vietnam and since then had horrible shaking hands. They believe from some experience with some chemicals. He was on every possible drug you can imagine. He was one of our first customers, and our marketing director saw him at church, and he went up and hugged her and said, "I can now pass the money dish around." Before, he couldn't drink soup, couldn't open doorknobs, and cannabis solved his problem. We're not here to say cannabis cures everything or anything like that, but the people that tend to seek out cannabis are a lot of your neighbors and people who are tired of being on opiates, tired of all the problems that causes that you hear about nationally. So you don't find that you have 18 and 19-year-olds and that's who's seeking it out. Trulieve as a company, to you have the pitch deck in front of you that you can see, but from our standpoint, we have major odor mitigation in our facilities, so you will not smell anything. We spend a lot of money on that. Another factor of growing marijuana is you want to keep the outside out of the inside and the inside out of the outside. So it's completely sealed off. We use a lot of high-tech equipment. You don't know what's happening there till you walk in the front door. When you walk in the front door, 100% you smell marijuana. But the neighbors have no idea. In Quincy, Florida, we're next to a Piggly Wiggly. When you go to that food store, you can't even tell what's next door to it. From a security standpoint, like mentioned, we buy the best equipment of everything. And so people feel it's secure when it's there. From a training standpoint, the protocols we'll work with Life Essence are amazing. Everything's done online, so people can watch the videos on their phone and do training on and off the job. Any training alerts go right out to them if something different has to be done. From a product standpoint, our products have a less than 1% return rate. We currently process and sell over 65,000 products a week in Florida. So with less than 1%, the products we'll be working with here. And the reason that's important is you don't want your community producing something that's a failure. You want your community to be known for something that's quality and good. Nobody wants a product that's caused problems and is off the shelf. With that said, I just want to implore you to take this opportunity, even with the tight time frame that exists in front of you, to embrace it. It really will change the lives from an employment standpoint of many people in the town, and it's an industry that's just fantastic. There's very few negatives, and I can tell you from being in the long-term care industry most of my life, even that industry has negatives, obviously, when you open facilities. With marijuana, it's been an incredibly inspiring process to be a part of. And
thank you very much. Really appreciate that, Mr. Atkins. So I just wanted to finish by talking about what we're really looking to do with the town of Charlton. And and really, it is a partnership, and we're really serious about how we want to, commit to giving back to the community. I think, as Ben well articulated, we have really an ability to get to a market safely, securely, and sort of and revenue quickly, which is important, and I think is differentiates us from a lot of other groups. And we finally, like Mr. Atkins alluded to as well, we do sort of understand how to train and encourage local community members to get into the industry and find a career that they can legitimately grow with. And so I thank you very much for your time. And I, as I started this presentation, I asked for your letter of support. And I hope that you will support Life Essence in our cultivation and manufacturing facility in Charlton. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Safarowicz.
question on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, page 7 of the deck. Full-time employees, you say you have 10 to 20 chefs and sous chefs? Can you explain that?
Yeah, I'd like to defer that actually to the.
Sure. So basically, in the processing facility, what's incredible about working with marijuana is you're making all different products. So everything from goods that are edibles to everything you can imagine you're producing. And so for those jobs, like in Florida, we have an amazing team of chefs because they're creating, all your products at the highest level. Because once again, you don't want to produce something that's then sold somewhere at your location and doesn't taste good or isn't good. It's just an amazing, I talked to somebody at Johnson & Johnson, which does a lot of production, and even that person was excited, saying there's very few companies left in America that are making anything, and cannabis is one of them, that it's because of, right now, because it's not allowed to go state to state, it also can't go from nation to nation. So you can't make cookies in China, ship them over on a barge with marijuana and sell them. So every single item, every aspect of the item is going to be made here. So you're going to need all that brain power, regardless of the type of position. You're going to need a chemical engineer. You're going to have somebody that understands if there's a cartridge being attached to a pen, what happens from an electrical standpoint. It's really incredible. It's like you have a building, this is pretty far-fetched what I'm going to give, but it's like going back to, the 50s and 60s to NASA when they're trying to do something and they're bringing in a lot of brain power to figure it out. We don't have the ability to go elsewhere. We can't say, oh, you know what, we'll have that mixed in Pennsylvania, and then we'll send the tires to South Carolina. We'll have the engine come from Mexico. So you have to realize you're going to have this one-stop shop where everything has to be put together, and if there's a problem, you can't send it out to be researched somewhere else. So you may have a retired school teacher in your town who's a biologist that you say, hey, we've got a mold issue, come on board. We need you to work on this. It's really fascinating because you just don't experience it in any other industry, because the truth is, in other industries, what do? You farm it out. You have it done elsewhere. I don't know if that answered your question.
Thank you.
Sure.
Sure.
Along those same lines, Mr. Doubleday, you mentioned the phrase livable wage several times. I'd like you to attach a number to that. Have you done that? What would you consider a livable wage?
We've done that in other communities, and I think what we have to do is do a study as to what is a livable wage here. It's obviously above minimum wage, and we've committed in other communities.
Well, we know it's going to be $15 or above,
Right.
Yeah.
the minimum.
Thank you, that's what I wanted to know.
Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Safarowicz.
do we know what the current zoning, or if the parcel in question has been subdivided and locking in the zoning for that?
Just from when I was on the planning board, it's IG.
Yep.
I believe was the preferred site amongst a lot of people to move VGG to at one point in time. It's owned by Amref Corporation, who ran, I won't say a dirty soil business, but he reclaimed stuff there. Fairly large-sized parcel. The last time it was used was by National Grid as a lay-down yard for when they were doing high-tension work. So it is IG. It does fit into, you know, the zone.
Okay, with the current zoning that's coming up, being proposed.
I believe that's what the planning board used, was the IG.
Through the chair.
Yeah.
First, I do want to thank everyone who came tonight to present. You did a great job. I'm sure you come off as, you're very intelligent folks, and I'm sure you've been paying attention to what's going on in our town. And it's because of that that I would suggest to the board that we hold off, not deny, but just hold off, or postpone issuing any kind of non-opposition letter at this point, given what we're going through. And I also did have a couple of questions, if I may, through the chair. You look like you were going to say something, though.
Just that I have to leave.
Okay, you have to, and plus, we don't have David here either, so it's...
But the other thing is, my suggestion to the board would be the same suggestion that we gave the last people that were here, that came in for Dresser Hill. That they work, you know, and this is the board's decision, this is just my take on this, to have them work with the town administrator to look at some of the aspects that the board is bringing up now, and to start, you know, to start a discussion with them. That would be my take.
May I mention one thing about that? I don't know if it's out of order, just mention one thing.
Are you leaving the
So,
meeting?
you're in a tight time frame. The state has put a time period on, kind of like a tracking, for lack of a better word. The only suggestion I would make, by issuing those letters, we cannot open the place without your permission at the end of the day, from a zoning standpoint, from a construction standpoint, from any standpoint. By you issuing those two letters, all it does is gets life essence past the December drop dead date, which the letters have to be in the next 48 hours, or they can't select this location. So what's happening is, in my opinion, you can put the letters into place, which doesn't force us here, it doesn't force you to have us. All it does is allow the state to say you have a green light to continue with Charlton if you want to be here. And if you want to have in that document, or a separate document, anything saying that's very clear, you can do that. If you don't issue the non-opposition letters, we can't return and do this, because we run out of the timeline of when that has to be done by. That's the catch-22 right now in this situation. So I absolutely respect what you're saying. I understand the thing that appeared in the Boston Globe and a lot of the TUDA about that. I respect that. It just puts it in a situation that there's a lot of moving parts. That parcel and those letters have to go to the state, and then there's a time mapping to do it. So this is the final location of their entire business plan, and after this December period, the time runs out. That started 2 years ago, essentially, with the process. So the state has a certain time period that they're allowed to review the stuff, and that's what we're up against. So I know there's a way to do exactly what you're saying by issuing them, but then by saying, look, even though we don't oppose this, even though we're allowing it, you still can't open with final approval, which obviously we're not going to invest millions of dollars if you don't want us here. There's no way we would ever do that. And if you're in that situation with another group, we certainly could put something in writing to make you feel completely comfortable about that.
We understand that time is of the essence, and that you are under time constraints. But out of respect for the community and for this board, I just, and this is just me speaking personally, I don't know how we could, in all good conscience, issue any non-opposition letter at this juncture. But again, that's just me. I
And thank you,
defer to Selectman Seferovich.
Madam Chair, thank you. With the drop-down date in December,
December 10th, but
why is there a 2-day rush?
because the complete package, which is not just this component, so basically, if I may, I'll explain the full process, is you have to have all your dispensing site locations. You have to have your grow and processing locations, all of them that you're gonna use, your whole entire package, and you submit it to the Department of Massachusetts. And from the time you first started your application, you have a certain set amount of time to finish that, and there's no leniency whatsoever. When you hand that package to the state, they then have approximately 8 weeks to review it and approve it. If you don't get it to them with those 8 weeks, they can simply kick it out and say, you're done. You know, you're not getting approved for that site. So no matter what we're submitting, we have to submit this week, no matter what,
We
to the
understand that.
state.
Right,
For all
so,
that to
we
go in.
understand
So we
that,
wouldn't
sir.
be able to include your site.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
So all I was suggesting is,
Excuse me,
you
sir.
can put, I apologize.
Yes.
so, I assume you're aware of all the controversy going on with our town, and with the information we were presented with before this meeting, I had no idea there would be a 48-hour constraint on this. I think it's disrespectful to the board and the town to expect us to take action on that if we can't form questions or research or talk to legal counsel in that time.
Well, and what I was gonna suggest is legal counsel could draw something up that he says or she says, you 100% have no commitment other than issuing the letters that the quote, the state would like to keep the process going. And it gives you a hammer on the back end that your legal counsel 100% does with no involvement of our counsel. It makes you completely comfortable. That's, all I'm trying to say is give
Okay.
your city the opportunity by providing.
We understand.
Okay, that was my suggestion.
Selectman Spiewak?
I just wanted to clarify something, because I have the steps in front of me, and perhaps this is not accurate, but my understanding is you submit your application, the DPH reviews the profile, and then decides whether or not to invite the applicant to submit the citing profile. So you have, they formally, officially have invited you to do that? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes,
And
correct.
December 10th of last year is when that invitation occurred. So it runs out on December 10th of this year. And we have legal counsel here that can speak more,
No, I just
more
wanted to.
specifically about that.
No, I still go, I echo what
And I
Selectman
didn't mean
Noble.
any disrespect.
No, so I just don't see, I think to actually mention the words you brought up before, you know, to do no harm to the residents, to the town, and to, quite frankly, to you, the entity, it's in everyone's best interest to postpone any kind of decision right now. And may I ask one more question, though, I had regarding an environmental impact? Because I was just curious, this was just brought to my attention actually earlier today, because I didn't know this, that marijuana plants sweat. I'm not trying to be funny here, but they produce residual water and the discharge. And how do you typically handle that? Because my understanding, and I'm getting this from someone who does this for a living, I guess, is that if you have, for an example, a 7,000 square foot of grow space, the math is, here's the math, 2,000 gallons a day divided by 7,000 square feet equals 0.28 gallons a day square foot. I mean, that's, I never thought, again, you don't know what you don't know, but that's a,
I think you're kind
I-
of getting
I had a
ahead
great
of the
answer.
game.
I know, but I just read that, I'm just wondering,
No, you're
have you-
absolutely
you've heard of
right.
that, and how do you handle that?
Oh, very simple. So, and this is where California ran into a problem when they didn't do this stuff correctly. If you're hand watering and you don't have a reverse osmosis system like we bring in, so 99.2% of all of our water is recycled that goes through the plants. So you have a very expensive reverse osmosis system that takes all of your watering, and all of your watering, it's, you know, obviously it's also cost beneficial. You don't just do it for the environment, which it solves that problem completely, but it also saves a lot of money, obviously, because you're reutilizing it. And
Thank
then,
you.
anyway, sorry.
Thank you, sir.
thank you, Madam Chair. So, how long has Charlton been the only site on your business plan?
It's not. We've got 3 different sites that we're talking to.
Okay.
And, you know, we're hoping to finalize with somebody.
Thank you. Ms. Craver?
Yes, just so you're aware of the timeline, I believe it was September 24th that I was first contacted by their attorney September 25th, I forwarded their email to Jonathan Silverstein and asked him to reach out and have a conversation with them regarding
Okay.
host agreements and development agreements, and to find out what they were looking for. October 3rd, I found out that they actually didn't want to go through that process. They wanted to come straight to the Board of Selectmen, and when someone asked to be put on the Board of Selectmen's agenda, you always open that. So I just want to be clear, it was not my understanding that you would be taking any action tonight.
Thank you. What are the, we have a question?
Sorry, very quickly, Bill Borowski, 69 Hackney Road.
Bill,
Sorry.
Sorry, can you come up here to the mic?
No, you're fine. Bill Borowski, 69 Haggerty Road, through the chair to the representatives.
Yes.
Just sitting in the audience, and again, with all due respect, I'm just wondering if Charlton was one of 3 in your business plan, why was there such a delay until late September, knowing that you had to have a decision so quickly?
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Yeah, thank you, I was going to ask that as well.
Basically, Life Essence, as a group, reached out to us. They originally were not planning to process or grow at the beginning, and they sought a waiver from the state of Massachusetts to see if they could simply, for lack of a better word, partial it off of another grower and processor. And that came through a couple weeks ago as being denied. We formed the partnership, basically said, we can get you through this hurdle. You know, we're obviously experts at processing and growing as well as dispensing. So we immediately set out through the state of Massachusetts to find communities that it doesn't work to go to a community that doesn't need you. It doesn't make sense to start there. So we went out to different communities where we felt it could be a huge benefit, and to do it. We apologize for the late time frame. I mean, it is what it is. Nobody's going to force anything upon the city. It really, truly is a great opportunity, but we understand you know, the recent politics that have occurred here. I would just simply, for us and for the town, you have great legal counsel, there's no doubt about it. Implore them to ask if there's a solution that's a win-win that gives you the ability to keep the process going, to keep you in it, while at the same time not commit you.
Okay.
And that's basically what I would say from an intelligence standpoint, that, you know, your
Yep.
legal counsel. That's all.
I appreciate the fine presentation you gave. It's well put together. Charlton is a wonderful community.
Absolutely.
I understand why a business would want to locate here. However, in just the informal comments from my fellow selectmen here, I'm not getting a feeling that we're ready to move forward with anything right now. It's unfortunate that the timeframe is so small, but those are my thoughts at this point. Selectman Safarovich?
I would like to authorize the town administrator to talk to and collect information, but with 3 out of the 5 members here and 48 hours deadline, I would not feel comfortable voting on anything.
I would recommend we take no action at this time. And I would also like to point out that area that's traffic concern.
True, it's right next to Treehouse Brewing. We've
Yeah,
had
just to
traffic
highlight
issues
that.
there for 2 years now? Year and a half? Do we need to make a motion? Or,
Well, I'd be glad to continue to work with them and to bring information back to us.
that would be appropriate at this juncture. Thank you. Thank you for your
We
time.
appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And sorry
Thank
for
you.
the short time period.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, under new business, site plan application, P-Corp Plumbing and Heating on Worcester Road. The planning board has provided you with a copy of a site plan submitted to them by Ken Pecor, KMN Properties LLC, 250 Stafford Street, Charlton, Mass, for site plan approval to construct a 6,000 square foot building with associated parking and utilities for plumbing and heating businesses. I know you usually read this, Robin. I just realized that. Sorry. Would you like to? I know.
So it's, they're looking to construct a 6,000 square foot building as associated parking, with associated parking and utilities for a plumbing and heating business. The property is located on Worcester Road, adjacent to the Barkwood Inn, and is listed as Assessor's Map 38, Block C, Lot 4, containing approximately 3.44 acres, and is zoned community business. You are asked to review the application, and should you have any comments or concerns, you must notify the planning board no later than October 16th.
Thank you. Sorry to have stepped on your toes there. So now we know what's going in there. I know a lot of residents have had questions about what's going in next to Barkwood. They were concerned, so now we know.
So if you don't have any comments tonight, if you do have any, you could forward them directly to the planning board or let us know.
Very good, thank you. Holiday schedule, Board of Selectmen meetings, all boards, committees, and commissions meeting.
Yes, Madam Vice Chair. The following are the board's scheduled meeting dates for October, November, and December 2018 and January 2019. We put this together because there are several meetings that you have. We have some reasons why you may cancel one, such as the state elections. And you had asked at your goals and objectives meeting to include some meetings, so we've tried to give you kind of a snapshot. So the board has not met in the past on the state election days to allow residents time to vote, so it does not interfere with an item that might be on your agenda. That will leave you one meeting in November, or a special meeting could be called if needed. For January 1st, January 1st is a holiday, you still have 2 scheduled meetings that month. We could have also provided a tentative all boards and committees commission meeting for your approval as directed at your goals and objectives meeting on October 2nd. So if this
Okay.
schedule works for you, we will post and revise things.
The only thing I would suggest is that for the meeting on January 8th, we also come up with a snow date for that. Much as I hate to admit it, it is coming. Winter is coming.
So we would have 2 weeks from that?
Yes.
Okay, for a snow day. It'll be your next off meeting.
Yes.
So it would be January.
So just so that people who are watching are aware, November 6th, there will not be a Board of Selectmen meeting that evening because it is state elections. Any questions? Next is the award for the Town Hall HVAC Controls Project.
Yes, as you know, the town of Charlton, through its Green Communities designation, has been pursuing the project to control energy use in the town hall, upgrading and the HVAC control equipment in the building. The new control system will be a web-based system, allowing the remote control of heating and cooling functions of the building. In addition, the system will be more responsive to heat load conditions occurring during swing seasons, better scheduling of occupied and unoccupied variable to the systems, shutdown of unit ventilators, bringing hot, humid air into the building in the cooling season, among other energy-saving functions. On October 3rd at 3:30 p.m., one bid was received, opened and read, for the Town Hall HVAC Controls Project. Building Commissioner Meskis has reviewed the bid and would recommend the board award the Town Hall HVAC Controls Project to the MPC Services Incorporated in the amount of $89,995. There are sufficient funds available in the Green Communities Grant to fund this project. I would recommend the board make the award.
What are the board's wishes?
Madam Vice Chair,
Yes?
I have to make this bigger. Hold on.
She needs some glasses, Karen.
I'd like to make a motion that we recommend the board award the Town Hall HVAC Controls Project to MPC Services, Inc. in the amount of $89,995.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion?
Oh, is there a discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Okay. Under old business, we have the Board of Selectmen goals and objectives.
Madam Vice Chair, you have.
Did you hand these
your
out?
Handout.
Okay.
Handout. As you know, the special town meeting calendar was approved at your meeting on September 11th, 2018, at your last meeting.
Are we talking about, are we talking about the special town meeting or
No.
the goals and objectives?
We don't have that in our packet.
You do not have this?
We do, we're on
But
goals and
wasn't that
objectives.
Mary gave us that, right?
This is it.
This is goals and objectives?
This
No.
isn't goals and
Oh, this is-
objectives.
This is not goals.
Are
Yeah,
we
we
goals
don't.
and, I'm sorry, the goals and objective, we would like to hold.
Oh,
It
okay.
is not completed, Jessica is still putting together the, I thought that had gotten written in there, sorry.
Okay.
So I asked that.
So you want us
put
to
a hold
hold?
on the Board of Selectmen goals and objectives until the next meeting.
Do you need any action from us?
No, ma'am, not at this time.
And when our next meeting is on the 23rd, I believe? Okay. So it'll be back on the agenda on the 23rd of October?
It's
Okay.
something that we're in the process of compiling.
Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. Special town meeting, continued.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. We need
As you
to-
know, special town meeting.
Yes.
A calendar was approved to the committee. At your last meeting, you closed the warrant and reviewed warrant requests. As the special town meeting is next Monday, October 15th, we will begin printing the town meeting booklet this week. You are scheduled to review the motions and to change and/or approve pending approval from the finance committee, who will be meeting tomorrow night. This is the evening that you would vote to support or not support. Although the board is not posted, you are invited to attend the finance committee meeting, as always, to discuss the articles.
And what time is that meeting?
I believe it's 6:30.
Thank you.
That's tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Confirmation from John, 6:30. As you know, we were also notified on September 5th that free cash was certified in the amount of, for the general fund, of
Mhm.
1.3 million. The enterprise fund for water was 260,000, and the fund for sewer was 802,000.
Very good.
Rounded. So if we can go to Article 1, again, some of these are some housekeeping components. So Article 1, under the motion, you have, and this is an appropriation of funds for unpaid bills of a prior year. We have some various department, mostly office supplies for W.B. Mason, and in the amount of $862.86.
Okay.
And I would recommend the Board of Selectmen approve this motion.
So moved?
Second?
All in favor? Any discussion?
And this is to support the motion?
Yes.
Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Article 2 is the intra-departmental transfers and/or appropriations for the FY 2019 budget. The motion is to move the following sums be raised by taxation or transferred, whichever is indicated below, and appropriated to the following accounts for any purpose for which funds may be expended from the latter accounts, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen or Chief Procurement Officer to enter into such contracts, including leases, and to take such other action as may be necessary or advisable to effectuate the purposes of the foregoing vote, each item being considered a separate appropriation. The first is to the following accounts: to the Sewer Enterprise Fund for the purpose to reimburse the salary of the Water Sewer Coordinator in the amount of $86,166.14 from the RRFA Water Superintendent Salary Fund. Next is Sewer Capital Replacement Equipment Fund repairs to RBCs 1 and 2, various capital projects, in the amount of $117,000 from the sewer retained earnings. General insurance, VFIS, $32,000 from ambulance receipts. Police salaries, union contract, $38,122, raise and appropriate. Contract obligation for classification changes, $25,000, raise and appropriate. And FY 19 conservation services, the lakes bathymetry survey in the amount of $7,900 from the municipal waterways receipt appropriation. I would recommend that the Board of Selectmen approve this motion.
What are the board's wishes?
I'll make a motion that we approve as presented.
Second.
Discussion.
Any discussion?
I do have a quick question.
Mhm.
The Finance Committee is meeting tomorrow, right? And it's the same thing I brought up before, and I think, Joe, you had, last time we went over the warrant at our last town meeting. What if they want to change numbers here? I guess I'm just trying to figure out, these are recommendations that they will support versus if you go to them and say, we've said yes to all of these, but they want to change something. I'm just,
What you've done in the past is that you have voted to approve pending Finance Committee adjustments.
I'd like to make that motion then.
Amend your motion to pending FinCom approval?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm in my second.
Any discussion?
I do, Madam Chair. We also have time, if there's anything that comes up that's a discrepancy or not recommended, we can change our vote day of town meeting.
We do meet here
Thank you.
prior.
Yep, I remember. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
I would recommend that same caveat for the next one also, for capital items and related contracts. The motion is, I move that the town vote to appropriate the following amounts to the following departments' respective accounts for the FY19 budget to be expended for the following purposes. Each item being considered a separate appropriation, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen or procurement officer to enter into such contracts, including leases, and to take such other action as may be necessary or advisable to effectuate the purposes of the foregoing vote. And this is our capital plan, and proposed is for fire, replacement of the fire inspection vehicle in the amount of $42,266 from free cash. For the highway department, there's 3 items: a 219 F-350 DRW 1-ton dump truck in the amount of $54,700 from free cash, a 2019 F-250 pickup, regular cab, $38,000 from free cash, and a 2020 Freightliner 108 SD conventional chassis, central hydraulic system plow hitch with a 10-inch chassis mounted sander, $152,400 from free cash. Next department would be police department, 2 cruiser replacements for a total of $108,000 from free cash, an unmarked vehicle for $42,000 free cash, water hookup to the school roof for $72,000 from free cash, town hall, an electric signboard for $40,000 from free cash, technology communications replacement and improvements, $75,000. I just want to stop and note here, that has been $25,000. I had recommended $50,000 in additional for a specific project. The Finance Committee was more amenable to taking that $50,000, putting it to the $75,000. They felt that we are not spending enough on technology now, and they recommended to just make the number $75,000 and work to have the commitment to keep it at that level so that we're maintaining. If you remember, we do replace much of our technology from here. We need to replace servers and other things, and $25,000 12 years ago was a lot. Today it's not. So that is an increase there. Free cash. Inspectional services of 4-wheel drive truck for $30,000 from free cash. The total amount for capital that we are proposing is $654,366, and I would recommend the Board of Selectmen approve this motion.
What are the board's wishes?
I make a motion that we approve this article as presented, pending FinCom approval.
Okay.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, Madam Vice Chair.
Yes.
Just a quick question on the electronic signboard. Can you tell me what that is and where it will be?
Right now, we have a signboard across the street at the library, and we are responsible for going over and changing the sign. It's a very heavy glass door that goes up. It pops our employees on the head. They're trying to hold it up. It's getting very dangerous in the wintertime when they go out and try to change it. we're just concerned, we're getting very concerned. What I want to do is work with the library to come up with a solution, either to replace that or to actually put a functioning one on the other side of the common. So my hope is that we'll be able to upgrade that one, but we'll work with the library trustees if the money is appropriated.
And one of the reasons why I bring it up, when I was a library trustee quite a while ago, I think well, Cheryl was looking at a digital sign, but I'm just bringing it up because I know Kurt had some issues with that type of sign, so.
We will have to work with the zoning enforcement official as to what kind of sign, and the planning board, what kind of sign we'd be able to put there.
All right. And I guess my last question is, because I have seen, I think somewhere, everything that I read, capital list, like a priority list of what you, is this on the list, or is this something because of what you just mentioned? Okay.
Quick question. What department, what entity will be in charge of this electronic sign?
It has been our office.
Okay.
Mostly Mary has gone out to change the sign when we have a custodian. The custodian has gone out to change the sign. This will make it easier to be more accurate on the sign, and there'll be less risk to our employees.
And will we allow other community entities to put their announcements on it, or is this just solely for Town of Charlton business?
We have, I don't see us changing the policy as we have it today, so we
Okay.
can certainly continue that conversation, but right now, we do, when there's space, we do add some of our Charlton nonprofits to be able to utilize that space.
Okay. Will it be a rolling sign, or will it be static?
I don't have that information. I think we'll be working on what your preference will be.
Okay, thank you.
And through the vice chair, my last comment would be, because I had looked into this, like write grants. If nonprofits are advertising on there, it is a possibility that we'd qualify for grant funds, just saying.
Thank you.
I'll help look if you want.
That would be wonderful, thank you.
And I'm not suggesting we remove them, I'm just making comments. There might be other ways to fund that.
Fantastic. Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. So, from the funding that you have just voted to approve in Article 3, the remaining funds from free cash is $679,254, and we are recommending to add that to the stabilization fund. So the motion under 4 would be, a motion to move that the town vote to transfer and appropriate the following sums to and from the following accounts and funds. The only change there would be to add $679,254 from free cash for the purposes of the reserves. This would be a majority vote as the Mass General Law changed, and to put money into a stabilization, it's only a majority vote. But if you are taking money out, it's a 2/3 vote. I would
Okay.
recommend the Board of Selectmen approve this motion.
What are the board's wishes?
I'd like to make that motion, but also put on what we've been saying for the other motions pending FinCom approval.
Second.
Any discussion? I'd just like to point out that this is still, at a stabilization fund of 1.3, it's still only about 50% of where we need to be. That's my only comment. Any other discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Under Article 5, it's an acquisition of an easement needed for a water line for the culvert repair and replacement at 87 Old Worcester Road as part of the ExxonMobil water line extension. The motion for that is to accept the article as printed. And I would recommend that you approve that. There's an informational note that would be worth mentioning. Town council is recommending that we include the words eminent domain taking in case there is some kind of issue with the deed. If the town meeting is not comfortable and wishes to take that out, then it would be a majority vote. but as it's written now, it would be a 2/3 vote.
Do we need to take action on this? It's sponsored by Water Sewer.
I would recommend that you approve the motion.
What are the board's wishes?
I'll make a motion that we approve it as written.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I am a little bit uncomfortable with the eminent domain.
Mm-hmm. Well, if memory serves me, then if it is still in here when we go to town meeting, someone will get up and make a motion that we remove it.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 6 is to create a water stabilization fund, and the motion for this would be to accept, skip down. To accept it as printed. Actually, I need to go back and find out why that cut off. There is actually a motion transferring $50,000 into it, so the motion will be to create the fund, as well as transfer $50,000 from the water enterprise.
I see that
It's
here.
on the sponsor.
It's on.
Actually, do you see
Is
where?
it? Thank you.
Yes,
not
it's
bolded
here
where
there.
I'm going.
Yeah.
I've lost it, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So the motion is I move that the town create a water stabilization fund under Chapter 60, Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5, for the purpose, for any purpose needed to support the town's public water supply and/or water enterprise fund, and B, the town transfer $50,000 from the water enterprise retained earnings to the water stabilization.
What are the board's wishes?
Move that we support the motion for Article 6 pending FinCom approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 7 is to create a sewer stabilization fund. The motion is that the town create a sewer stabilization fund under Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5, for any purpose needed to support the town's public sewer system and/or sewer enterprise fund, and B, the town transfer $200,000 from sewer enterprise retained earnings, $27,142 $74 from the sewer Millennium Trust Fund, and $1,012,356.16 from the Sewer Capital Project Trust Fund, for a total of $1,239,498.90 to the Sewer Stabilization Fund.
I move that we support the motion for Article 7 pending FinCom approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next is Article 8, it's the Personnel Bylaw Amendment Classification Plan Update, and the motion is to move the article as, be accepted as printed.
What are the board's wishes?
Move that we accept the article as printed.
Second.
Any discussion?
So you're recommending that motion?
Yes.
And that's a majority vote needed.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Article 9, fully fund additional 5 firefighters as the grant ends. And as you know, this is a grant that we had received a 2-year grant for 9 firefighters. Town meeting had already appropriated and approved 4. We're going back to town meeting. The grant runs out in 6 months. We are going back to town meeting and asking for the funding for the rest of the 6 months, which is half a year at $130,000. And what we're gonna be looking for, I think, is for town meeting to approve that we keep all 9. So the motion reads, I move that the town vote to transfer and appropriate $130,000 from ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation to fund the remainder of FY19 salaries for 5 firefighters, and to accept all other language in the article as printed.
What are the board's wishes?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
at a previous meeting, several selectmen were not comfortable with committing to those positions, that we would just go for the transfer of the $130,000 and take it up at a more appropriate time at town meeting, at the annual, when we're actually working with the budget.
Then that could be communicated at town meeting. The motion as it stands would be the same, whether you committed or not.
Do I have a motion?
I would,
Well, actually, no,
I,
it
I,
doesn't. It
I would,
actually
I would
says-
recommend the motion be, I move that the town vote to transfer and appropriate $130,000 from ambulance receipt reserves for appropriation to fund the remainder of the FY19 salaries for 5 firefighters, and end there, pending FinCom approval. So striking the app and after that.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Article 10 is a local gas tax. You had voted that the town meeting had approved this a couple of years ago, actually, I think in 2016. We've been told that we need to have it revoted to keep moving it forward. And the motion is to move the article to accept it as printed.
What are the board's wishes?
Madam Vice Chair, I move that we support the motion for Article 10,
Pending FinCom?
pending FinCom approval.
Do I have a second?
I don't think we need pending FinCom approval.
Yeah, for this one.
We do.
Second?
Any discussion?
Just a quick question.
Mm-hmm.
How much revenue has that generated approximately over the years?
Nothing. We haven't had it passed yet.
Oh, I'm thinking of the meals tax. The meals tax has created a lot of revenue. Okay.
It's about
That's right.
$140,000
Wrong
a year.
tax. Thank you.
Any additional discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Article 11 is a zoning bylaw amendment for marijuana establishments. Generally, you do not make recommendations on this, but given how much controversy has been, you may wish to weigh in. So I have put a recommendation. You can let me know whether or not you want to leave it on or not.
In light of the fact that we have 3 of the 5 selectmen here, I don't know that we can make a recommendation because we're missing 2 of our fellow selectmen. That's
Can we
my opinion.
do it when we meet before the town meeting?
I can just leave it open and not write anything on it. And you could say what your motion is at the town meeting.
Or we can choose not to take a stance because it's
It's a zoning matter.
a zoning matter. Whatever the board decides at that time.
I'd like the full board, though.
I would as well.
Agreed.
Thank you.
So I'll remove that and have the board just make it on the floor.
Thank you.
Same for Article 12, or Article 12 is yours. My understanding is that the planning board will not be holding a hearing, therefore this will not be able to go forward.
Ms. Craver?
Yes, ma'am?
There have been several questions as to the timing of this, the actions. For clarification purposes, because we're broadcasting this, would you give a timeline of what happened after the board passed this, please, so that people are aware?
And that we included this on a vote on this several months ago, and no action was taken on it.
So the day after the warrant closed, when you decided what was going to go on, and you didn't take any placeholders off, and there had been questions also about who was putting this on and whatever. The day after the Board of Selectmen closed the warrant, which was September 26th, and included the zoning ban, Jonathan forwarded me his language for the zoning ban article. On the 27th, the next day, I sent Jonathan's language to the Board of Selectmen asking you to review. Also, on the 27th, I sent Jonathan's language to Bill and Jane at the Planning Department, saying, "Hi, Bill, here's another zoning article that the planning board would need to hold a meeting on. The Board of Selectmen voted Tuesday to add the zoning ban for marijuana things." On October 1st, Bill responded back, "In regards to Article 12, the planning board will not be holding a public hearing prior to town meeting. Without a public hearing, town meeting will not be able to vote on the article." When I asked him what the deadlines were, he stated the first notice of the hearing must appear 14 days before the hearing, so it would have required advertising on the 1st and the 8th for the hearing to be held on the 15th, the day of town meeting.
Through the chair,
Yes?
we voted on this 2 months ago as a board. We voted to include this on the town meeting warrant, and it wasn't included in the planning boards.
August 28th, we voted on it.
Right.
Yeah.
So who dropped the ball?
Did we send this to them after the August 28th meeting?
No, you didn't have the language for it on the August 28th meeting. They were aware that you were looking at it, but we didn't have the language. And I
When-
think there was also some confusion. So if anyone's going to take responsibility for dropping the ball, it would be, I suppose it would be my office.
Okay, thank you for that.
There was some confusion.
It happens.
But I also wanted to point something out, because I think it's very important. And then you did outline this in an email, and I do appreciate it. So we, again, just going over the timeline, we voted to have this on there August 28th. And then on September 27th, you did send the email to us. And I know you mentioned that Joe, Selectman Safarowicz, was the only one that responded because you wanted some input in the language. I just want to make it clear, we are not allowed to respond to that. That is considered serial email, it's a serial matter, or it's straw polling. I just want to, because I know there's some confusion, we cannot do that.
Then there's a problem, because when you voted that you wanted to put a ban on, you did not have any language in front of you. And generally, what I do is work with attorneys to put it together, and then I
Yep.
send out. If people let me know that they don't have any issues, or they have any issues, then I can make some adjustments. It was not a polling as to having the board respond to the whole board, but quite often I will send something out saying, here's the language, do you have any comments on it?
Right, and you did, and you sent the actual language you used in the email, just, again, trying to work through all this. You asked us to please see below that proposed warrant language for the zoning ban and let me know if you have any comments. And I quote, "Otherwise, I'll use this language we will be posting Monday." That was September 27th. So, but then you, in the other email, you mentioned that we didn't respond.
I still sent the language. After I sent that email, only Joe responded back that it looked okay. Usually, selectmen will respond back when it looks okay to them. And instead of waiting, because I didn't want to wait to send it to the planning board, and I wanted it to get to them in time, I forwarded it on to them anyway.
Madam Chair, I would like to include that, you know, looking at it from our original motion, that I think it was implied that the attorney, our attorney, would craft something, and us looking at it, I think it's appropriate for us to review what we're, you know, what we're working on.
We can look at it. I'm not making this up. This is in the open meeting law. I just looked it up, mass.gov documents. Many boards and committees are confused, but you cannot kind of chime in, because the open meeting law, the intent is so the public understands how we're reaching our decisions, how we're formulating that warrant article.
And we made a decision on the article to include it.
But,
Okay.
right, but the
Okay.
language was changing, that's all. Again, I know there's a lot of confusion, so.
Yes, and I appreciate all the clarification very much. We don't want to violate open meeting laws.
No, and there's a lot of confusion around that.
Mhm.
I believed after the meeting, August 28th, that Joe was going to work with, I think if you look back, we gave Joe permission to work with the town administrator and the attorney to set forth, bring forth language. But again, I know it was very confusing, but it is.
Madam Chair, I don't remember tasking
Excuse
me
me.
with that.
We'll have to go back and
we
review
can look,
those.
but that's what I thought was going to happen.
We
which
can go
is-
back and review those minutes.
But you did comment, so it's good. Or not.
Or was it? I'm not
but-
sure. Ms. Graber, can you please look into if we violate an open meeting law?
I'm not saying I'm simply bringing it up because it's very confusing for folks. And moving forward in the future, if we're working on a document, that's not the way to work out a document. Two of us can be a committee and meet in public.
Yes.
And then bring it forth at the next meeting. But we cannot have a working document behind the scenes. That's my understanding.
Can we get clarification on that, please?
Certainly.
Thank you.
Usually what would happen is I would send it out to you. If someone says, no, I want more further discussion, then it comes back to the board. You didn't have that time because you didn't have the language. But generally, it's, if I just get thumbs up, no changes, then there's no deliberation, no need for deliberation. If someone says, I need to talk about this, then it comes back to the board.
Okay, but in the future, let's make sure that we're very clear that we're not doing business via email that would violate open meeting laws.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, can I make one very brief comment?
Please introduce yourself again.
Oh, of course. Bill Borowski, 69 Haggerty Road. I'm really not going to make a big commotion tonight, I promise.
Thank you.
This is more of an issue of how can better procedures be put into place so that a repeat of this does not happen?
Absolutely.
Because a base timeline is that, yeah, the vote occurred in late August. There was an intermediary meeting on September 11th in which it wasn't discussed. So why is it that it wasn't brought up until literally a few days before it had to be posted? And again, I'm not chiding anyone at this point. What's done is done. What I would ask is that, again, I don't think you need a formal policy, but whether it be a timeline for these types of things with milestone dates, et cetera, just so that things like this don't happen again. And I would just recommend to the board, to the administrator, to everyone else, to say, this is a wonderful learning lesson, to say, let's make sure this doesn't happen again. Because I think a lot of people are disappointed. Unfortunately, I think some of this fuels conspiracy theories, which I'm not buying into. But the reality is that things like this cause unnecessary strife. So
I would agree, this is a good learning experience for all of us. We have in the last year inputted policies that place timelines and restrictions on other documents that have to go through. We all remember that from having to go through 508 and things getting delayed. And so this, again, was a good learning experience for all of us. I don't think this will happen in the future.
see, I get my promise, no commotion.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Chair, if I may make
Yes.
one more comment, I want to thank Mr. Borowski for his comments. I always go back to, to what he had said. It's like, how did this happen? How do we make sure it doesn't happen again? I know a very simple method some boards and committees use is actually just have action items at the bottom of the agenda. And then, so it's kind of pulled out from the regular agenda, and everyone knows who's doing what and what's expected, so you can reference it quickly at the next meeting. Who was in charge of doing what? What did we say we were going to do? Just, and then it's easy to find out if something wasn't addressed.
Certainly, we could actually do that in the minutes, list at the end of the meeting.
the
These
end
are
of
our
the-
action items, it would go into the minutes, and then we would have something to follow along.
And it's just a suggestion, there's other
Mhm.
methods out there, but it goes back to how do we make sure this doesn't happen again?
So what we do is at the end, when Mary is going through the minutes, she creates a to-do list, and she'll put a list of all the action items from that meeting. I'm not sure if that would have been caught on this one, because you voted that you were going to support a ban. Then you opened the warrant, which is the meeting that Mr. Kowalski said wasn't talked about, because you wanted to do it. And then when you closed the warrant, I had to, still had it as a placeholder to find out, make sure you wanted to, and there was some concerns about
I understand.
litigation.
We're beating a dead horse here.
And then it was forwarded the next day. So
Okay.
I'm not even sure if you'd had that list, that it would have been done differently.
I understand. And like I said, at this point, we're beating a dead horse, but since Mary does the to-do list,
She does do one.
then we're not
We usually,
asking her to do anything else. Is it possible that that to-do list, if it involves any members of the board, we get that emailed to us?
yes.
I think that's a good step in the right direction. Okay, moving on.
And then the last one is a petition, and generally you can take a recommendation if you want, or not.
Or not. Okay.
I didn't put anything there, so,
And this would be the citizens petition, Article 13?
yes, ma'am. So just to read it, selectmen shall, it's to add a citizen petition article, general bylaw, to see if the town will vote to amend the town's general bylaw by adding a new chapter and section that would provide as follows, and further to amend the table of contents to add said chapter and section. Chapter 157, marijuana, Section 157-4, host agreement. Selectmen shall comply with provisions of General Law 94G and obtain town meeting approval of the terms of any host agreement pursuant to General Law, Chapter 94G, prior to signing. Any General Law, Chapter 94G, host agreement previously signed by the Board of Selectmen which does not comply with the provisions of Mass General Law 94G, Section 3D, is declared null and void, or take any action relative thereto. And then it continues to say, this general bylaw will protect the town of Charlton from any host agreements which do not comply with Mass state law. I believe that Attorney Silverman had suggested that this was not necessarily illegal, but I'm not sure how I'd like to move forward. He had questions on the legality of it.
I believe what the attorney said in one of his letters is that there's a potential that this violates Article 1, Section 10 of the U.S. Constitution, also known as the Contracts Clause, because it seeks to, among other things, create an ex post facto law.
I would ask Attorney Silverstein be prepared to talk on that issue at town meeting.
Jonathan will not be there. Katie, his project, Katie will be there.
Very good. She's well versed.
She will be, she's very well versed.
Just provide a concise
Have her ready.
overview of it.
Mhm. Okay, the board doesn't need to take any actions on that.
Again, I will be taking this to the Finance Committee tomorrow night, so if you would like to attend.
The meeting is at 6:30.
Yes.
Is it here in this room?
Yes, ma'am.
It is here in this room. Okay. Moving on to committee reports. Anything from the Solar Moratorium Committee?
Nope, our next meeting is October 30th,
Okay.
7:30. I believe in this room, but I have to confirm that again. So I don't have anything new to report because we haven't met since our last meeting.
Okay.
Our last Board of Selectmen.
You did have a member resign, so do you have an opening now?
We do.
Okay.
Yep.
Just to let people know, there is an opening on the Solar Moratorium Committee, which will be meeting on October 30th. Okay. The Marijuana Advisory Committee is currently attempting to schedule a meeting the first week in November. We were all invited to a workshop that took place across the street at the library titled Cannabis in Our Community, and 4 of us were able to attend. It was a fairly well-attended workshop. And Fay Mountain Farm is thriving. I'd like to remind everybody that we do have CSAs at Fay Mountain Farm. And they had their fall festival just a week or so ago, which was picture perfect. The weather couldn't have been better. Hay rides, pumpkin picking, apple picking. I would encourage people to go there and check it out before the growing season's over. There's still a lot of produce available. Okay. Board of Selectmen Policy Review. Selectman Spiewak?
You read them last time. I didn't know if you wanted to do it again, or.
I'd be glad
and I'll
to.
comment.
Selectman Speedwack has asked for the following policies to be placed on the agenda for discussion by the board. Policy for adoption and amendment of policies, transparency in the sitting of marijuana facilities in Charlton, citizen relations petitions policy, and minutes. As directed by Chairman McGrath, we have scheduled a workshop for December 11th for the board to review its policies.
Okay. I'd just like to ask one question regarding the policy for the minutes.
That was, actually, I don't have, that's not a policy, actually.
Okay,
It was just procedural.
okay.
Right.
Did you consult with the woman who does our minutes, Mary Devlin?
I've talked to her in the past, so I know how many hours she puts in. So just so everyone's aware of what we're talking about. One of my observations is, Mary, who does our minutes, and does a great job, I might add. What I'm pointing out, it's a lean action, more of a point of order. What she produces really is a transcription. It's literally every single word that we said in the meeting. For instance, the minutes we approved tonight, I believe, was about 19 pages long. That, in my research and in my experience, has not been considered a best practice, especially since we have our meetings on the web, on YouTube. You can go and watch the actual meetings. So I'm recommending that we go back to actually asking our support staff to do minutes. And their minutes, what's really required in the minutes are outlined in many government documents. It's just leaner. It certainly would free up a lot of time for her. So that's my observation. I'm uncomfortable approving the minutes because, again, I can't remember every word. And when we say, yep, we approve, that's what we're kind of saying. So that's what I'd like the board to consider, to ask Mary to do minutes rather than a transcription, which is a best practice.
It's my understanding that the transcriptions are to provide more transparency into the board's actions and language during the meetings.
I would also say it helps us when going through research, both as a selectman and I think through the office, of past meetings and what actions were taking place and what was discussed. So it's a good tool to do that past research.
I wonder if it's more work. I was going to say maybe she could do minutes, but that would be redundant again. It's just my opinion. It's not a best practice. It's a transcription. And everyone knows, I think, that I'm all for transparency, but in this case, it's not lean. It would free up a lot of time for Mary. And again, I don't know if you have any opinions on this.
And we will be discussing it on December 11th.
Discuss it, okay. And one of the policies I actually have a recommendation. I just wanted to go on record. Actually, I'd like to know your thoughts. The transparency and the citing of marijuana facilities in Charlton, I was thinking maybe it should be more inclusive and entitled "The Transparency and the Citing of Establishments Requiring Host Agreements," and then just go into the actual core document, the text, and where it says on line 3, in the citing of marijuana facilities, just insert, again, establishments, requiring, yeah. And I say that because there are, we have legalized gambling. So I want to kind of be more inclusive. And policies typically are broad, so versus so specific. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think anything that broadens this particular policy would benefit it in that regard. So I would suggest that we review these and bring our thoughts and comments with us on December 11th for the workshop.
And one other suggestion would be, one of the policies is entitled Citizen Relations and Petitions. I would like to get input from, the citizens on what I'm proposing. And I want to disclose that the language I have before you, I did not create, maybe a sentence here or there, but most of it has been taken from other policies in cities and towns, school committees or ed foundations, or so that's. I just wanted to disclose that.
Thank you. So that means it has been well vetted before.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thoughts on posting this for input? I certainly could do it but I prefer it be on the website.
I would think it, could we post this
Absolutely.
and ask for public comment?
But let me just check back to the change in title, so if you can let us know exactly what titles you want for these.
Well, that one would be the
because-
same. I
Okay.
can send it to you.
Because
definitely
taking
send it
the
to you.
word marijuana out and talking about host communities is what got us in trouble in the first place.
This is true.
Because that's exactly what we did. We said host community agreements when we posted that first meeting.
Hmm.
So people may have an expectation that the word marijuana be in it.
All right, we'll have to work on that. Something to think about.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Anya, Student Select Persons Report. Do you have anything to add from your earlier comments? And thank you for being here tonight. We're also very happy that you're back.
Thank you.
Last year, you were such an asset to this board. And the mock town hall you had at the school with the students was probably one of the finest experiences in public policy that I've taken part in many years.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I would like to start my report by expressing both my gratitude and excitement to be reselected to work with the Board of Selectmen. Since you did bring up the mock town meeting, I will be working again with our new superintendent, chief interim, whatever the words are, Dr. Nash. I did give her some information about what I did last year, so this year I should be partnering with the Dudley Student Select Person, and it should be occurring at both middle schools. So it becomes a district event and hopefully continues after I've graduated. Regarding events at Shepherd Hill, Wednesday the 10th, which is tomorrow, juniors will be taking the PSAT to prepare for the SATs in the coming spring. The high school will have a fall showcase for all the 8th graders on October 6th during school, kind of cue them in on what they'd be expecting if they were going to be freshmen in the following year. And the sports teams have all kicked off Breast Cancer Awareness Month by switching out their team shirts for pink apparel as well as their socks, and term 1 ends October 26th. Regarding the year so far, a new district goal this year is to institute project-based learning across all grades, which has begun at Shepherd Hill primarily and is supposed to spread down throughout the different grades. So more field trips, more experiments, stuff like that, so that it's not all just textbook learning. A couple weeks ago, there was a voter registration opportunity held during all 4 lunches. 67 students registered in total, 27 in Charlton, 38 in Dudley, and 2 from Southbridge.
Very good.
So we're able to register to vote at 16. We just can't legally vote until we're 18 years old. I was one of those students that registered ahead of time, so it was a pretty good turnout for that event. The 29th First Honors Scholars Dinner was held on the 20th, and 137 students who achieved First Honors all 4 semesters last year were recognized at a dinner. Students, family, and faculty listened to an engaging presentation from the Shepherd Hill class of 2012 graduate Chris Kochling. He is a member of the International Space Station Flight Control Team at NASA and was a graduate from Shepherd Hill.
Wow.
Homecoming Day occurred in September and was very successful, and yet again full of Shepherd Hill's various clubs selling food and multiple games occurring across most of the fall sports teams. The night concluded in a victory by the football team of a 28-0. Spirit Week was very competitive and ended with pep rally where the theme was early 2000s TV shows. Sophomores placed last, then freshmen, juniors second, and seniors first. And then to close it all up, some particular students, Emily Briggs, Gina Yu, and Cam Cushing, received letters of commendation recognition from the National Merit Scholarship Program, and were three people who were included in the top 50,000 students out of 1.6 million that were considered.
Thank you so very much, Anya.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Town Administrator's Report?
Yes. At the board's last meeting, Selectman Singer asked me to work with Chief Maxfield to add into the budget for special town meeting a lockbox at the training range for the police department. I spoke with Chief Maxfield, who said he is taking care of this as he has money in his budget to do so. While speaking with the chief, I want to congratulate him on his 1-year anniversary as chief this past week. He has done a good job and works hard to make changes that not only benefits his department, but also as we make positive changes to our financial processes. Northeast Energy Center, the Department of Public Utilities Sitting Division has asked to use the Board of Selectmen meeting room for a public hearing Tuesday, November 13th at 7 p.m. The public hearing is to receive public comment on the proposed project by Northeast Center, LLC, the company. The company will present an overview of the proposed project. Public officials and the public will then have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments about the project. We have posted the board to attend as they are hoping that the Board of Selectmen will come and support and participate. The Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness grant, known as the MVP grant, we held a joint kickoff with the town of Spencer last week. It was well attended and the work has begun on this project. Civic Plus, we also held a kickoff meeting with the new web designers. It was also well attended by department heads and staff. Local Climate Leaders Summit, I also attended last Saturday a local leaders summit on climate change. And lastly, procurement, we opened the bids for the HVAC improvements, the winter stand, and architectural design for the new public safety building. Tonight you did approve the HVAC improvements, and I expect that we will bring the others to you shortly. Two more items. The Public Safety Building Committee is in the process of contracting with an OPM, and hopefully our new facilities technician will start tomorrow.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? I would just like to also congratulate Chief Maxfield on his one-year anniversary. He's a tremendous asset for the town. We're very lucky to have him, and I look forward to working with him for many more years. Other business unknown at time of posting. Highway Superintendent?
Yes, attached is a disclosure form submitted by Highway Superintendent Foskett for your approval. Mr. Foskett is disclosing that his brother, Richard Foskett, is an employee, an equipment operator of Albanese Brothers Incorporated. They have been contracted by Mobile Exxon to install water mains in various streets within the town of Charlton. Mr. Foskett states his responsibilities as Highway Superintendent include being the issuing authority of trench and road opening permits, as well as doing oversight for this project. He will have no financial issue in this matter, but his brother, as an employee of Albanese Brothers, will. I would recommend the board approve the disclosure form as submitted and find that you believe that he can do his duties without any ethical issues.
What are the board's wishes?
Madam Vice Chair, I move that we approve the
disclosure form.
Thank you. That we approve the disclosure form as submitted by
And
Mr. Foskett.
Can I also ask that if you look on page 86, there is a determination. So there's a determination by the appointing authority. So as the appointing authority, I have reviewed the particular matter and financial interest identified above by the municipal employee. I've determined that the financial interest is not so substantial as to be deemed likely to affect the integrity of the services which the municipality may expect from the employee. So if you would add that determination.
So added, so moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any more discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Would you want to authorize the chairman or myself to sign this determination?
I would authorize, do I have to make a motion?
Yes, please.
I would make a motion that we authorize the town administrator to sign this.
Second.
Thank you.
Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Okay,
I would remind you, when you read the next meeting announcement, that you are
Mhm.
also scheduled for 6 o'clock here for a pre-meeting.
yes.
And that is October 16th meeting where we'll be going to executive session
October 15th,
15th.
on our,
before the
right?
Charlton Middle School.
On our memorandum for our holiday schedule, October 16th is listed as a special meeting for a personnel hearing for executive session.
Correct.
Thank you, Joe. So the next meetings will be special town meeting, Monday, October 15th. The board will meet here at the town hall at 6 p.m., after which time we will adjourn and reconvene at 7 p.m. at the Charlton Middle School for the special town meeting. I recommend people get there early. You'll have to stand in a short line and have your voter registration checked by the people at the table.
Just as a clarification,
Mhm.
I don't think you'll be planning on adjourning, you will recess?
We will recess and reconvene. Thank you. And again, arrive early if you can. We will have an executive session meeting on October 16th. Our regular selectmen's meeting will be Tuesday, October 23rd at 6:30 here in the selectmen's meeting room. With that, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, hearing none? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Charlton Board of Selectmen signing off.